I've heard it come up in the media more and more often these days, and politicians are sort of, how do we put it, are suggesting death taxes or testing the water, I suppose, in the media. And I never really took any notice of it because I didn't really early on understand the concept of a death tax and why it would be important. Not necessarily I didn't understand, I probably just didn't give it too much thought. And I remember the day that changed was when I spoke to someone a few years back, and their family had lost their farm, I think back in the 60s, or it might have been the early 70s, where they had a property up in far north Queensland, been in the family for a number of generations. Dad died. They were in the middle of a drought. They'd sold off a whole heap of sheep. And then all of a sudden the death duties or the probate duties came in, I think they called them, and they ended up having to sell the farm because they couldn't fund those death duties. And it all of a sudden, I suppose, dawned on me then as saying, okay, well, if death taxes come in, the people that are going to be hit by these things very hardly will be the farmers, graziers, and also business owners that own assets. And it'll disproportionately. Now, I'm guessing the politicians will be smart enough to maybe put some concessions in there, but still it's a risk that they may happen because you don't want to get to the stage of, succession planning your farming assets and then find out, oh no, they've all got to be sold because we've got to pay the death taxes.
That's right. And, like we talked about, Ben, they won't necessarily be called death tax anymore, but they will operate in the same manner. And the United Kingdom has had a long history of probate taxes or death taxes or estate taxes, whatever you want to call them. And the wealth of family, grazing and farming families has been decimated because you tend to be very, very asset rich or quite asset rich, but cash poor. Your cash is your livestock. That's your cash flow in a rural enterprise. So to have to come up with a large unplanned for sum of money, because none of us know when our time comes, particularly when somebody passes away through tragedy or just well before their time, it can be a really huge impact. And unfortunately, there is a long history of properties having to be sold and farms having to be broken up in particularly that British and English jurisdiction.
Mm. And so death taxes are around the world, Tim?